I don't know if you knew this stat, Meteos, but this is the first time that C9 had lost a regular season series, and I think it was 430 something days.
I saw that. It's one of those stats that if they haven't lost anything, that would mean a little bit more to me. But like, I see these guys lose all the time. Like, just
as soon as there's an international qualifier, they'll be losing.
Yeah, it was playoffs. I see them lose a lot.
Meteos is like, wait a second, is that true? I see them lose all the time. What the? Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia, Season 10, Episode 25. Not Episode 24, as some people would like you to believe.
Who are those people?
We are back. We've done a lot of promotion for our League Classic, and it's finally here. It's finally out. Meteos kept asking me if I've played it yet already, and I'm like, bro, I've been at work all day. I've been at work all day.
I'm just saying you could have woken up early and played. It comes out at like 4 a.m. our time. You just, rise and grind.
True.
Have you played?
I played one game today. Yeah, during lunch.
Was it at 4 a.m.?
I wasn't eating lunch at 4 a.m. No. I played it one game so far. It was, it was pretty fun. It was interesting.
Was it a classic experience?
He sounds hesitant.
He does sound hesitant.
I mean,
interesting.
It's chaotic for sure. Like, and it was fun.
Yeah.
I was playing Warwick because he's one of the junglers who can actually clear easily. And I was against a Shaco and he just died on his first clear and then came back and died a minute later. I'm like, he might not have the right runes and masteries for this. So that was probably pretty chill for him. I had a better time than he did, for sure.
I mean, that was one of the things when League Classic was announced. A lot of my early memories are like, and I didn't know if this was old man yelling at clouds, but I was like, back in my day, jungle was hard. Like, you actually had to work to be able to clear the jungle. And a lot of people that are used to just infinite sustain and like you literally gain life nowadays in the jungle, we're going to have a harder time. And I was expecting some of the newer players to actually die there. But Warwick, as far as I remember, that was literally the healthiest jungler. Like, because he has so much innate sustain, like he was able to clear it the easiest, I think.
I think Xin was pretty good clearing too without runes.
I feel like Xin was not even old.
Okay, well, I can't remember.
Zin's fairly.
There was two champions that I remember getting recommended because I remember playing.
You're dating yourself by saying that. He was like a season 1 champ.
Xin?
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm pretty new.
really new champion.
That's why I thought Xin was the one, because I remember when I first started playing, like I played in beta. I didn't even make to level 30 or anything, but like I played a little bit, and my first game I was like, oh yeah, I'll jungle, and I just like couldn't kill any camps. I didn't have a single rune or anything, right? You had to like buy them, and without armor runes you just died. So my friend was like, oh, you could play Warwick, and then there was one other he told me.
Mumu was one of them, because that is actually really similar to how I got into League, because I remember my experience with League is I tried it once and, I just lost really badly and was like, all right, that wasn't very fun. I'm not going to play this. And then later, one of my friends from high school was like, hey, dude, I need you to log on League. I need someone to jungle. Because this was back before people even jungled regularly, because it was so hard, especially when you didn't have runes and stuff. So I would play a Mumu with like cloth armor, 5 health potions. He played Soraka mid and would start W level 1 to heal me so I could do my first camp. It was so crazy. Yeah, it was actually wild times back then.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more modern than that. There is a machete, but yeah, it's definitely a lot harder than live.
Yeah. I mean, Freak said they were going to make some small adjustments to things to, make stuff a bit more playable. Also, like, games could go like 90 minutes or whatever, and so they obviously made some more changes so that
medium scaling, right?
Yeah, that games aren't going to go crazy long, which I thought sounded pretty good, because nobody wants to stick around for quite that long anymore.
I mean, the jungle stuff, though, is funny. I watched one of my friends playing one game a little bit this morning, and and he was playing Yi and just like immediately died to a white camp or whatever, to I guess what the Gromp used to be.
Like level 2?
Yeah. And he popped his 2 health potions late, so he used both of them and still died, and then he's just like, all right, what do I do now?
Yeah, dude, that camp, the white, it was added, I think, I don't know if it was beginning of season 4 or sometime during season 4, and then shortly after it was turned into Gromp with the map rework stuff. So it was like, I don't know how many people actually remember it as the white. It was just a Wraith, but bigger.
Yep.
And that thing slaps. That thing does so much damage. honestly, you probably shouldn't even fight it most of the time unless you just are really good at single target or something, because the camp timers are insane in Classic too. It's, I think, 45-second respawn on camps or something like that. So it's like you finish your full clear, you start recalling, you're like, wait, my first 2 camps are already back up.
My favorite thing, though, I think about League Classic is that Phrox said they're going to try really hard to not let any of the game data out and be accessible by like, stats websites and stuff. So that you actually do have to play by feel of like, what's OP? What feels OP? You know, what did I not die with? What can I survive with? Or what am I having success with? And so I hope that we can get that old feeling of, you know, like you feel like you're actually good at something and you don't have to feel bad if, you know, someone looks it up and like the win rate actually isn't that good for that champion. They're, you know, they're not going to like push you off of playing what you want to be able to play. And so I hope that, they can keep the stats hidden. And
I love that.
And so then everybody gets to kind of figure it out for themselves. As far as that goes, though, you know, we saw some AP Master Yi, and that was bringing back some memories of some super OP AP Master Yi, you know, so in the show match that we did just this last weekend.
Okay, so that champion specifically, I played with one today in my game that I played, and he's actually so toxic because the way his reset works, I don't think there's any reset champ that works this way, but he has to actually get the kill to reset, not just an assist. So he just sits there doing nothing, be like, yo, get him low for me, and I'm going to alpha strike him and take your kill and then get a reset. I'm like, wow, this is so messed up. But I mean, he had fun with it.
Yeah, and you're like, well, dang, it is in my best interest to actually let him get the kill.
Yeah, but where are my kills? I want some kills.
Yeah, because you want him to reset too.
That's funny. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I feel like a lot of times with the win rate thing, I mean, I'm really excited about that too. I've said this before on the dive, but I hope they do that for regular league as well. I feel like people get so mind controlled by win rates in a lot of ways, where it's like people are playing in a way that they are less successful because the data shows that it's a higher win rate, right? It's like sometimes I think you can just play what works for you, and if you're winning games, it doesn't matter if it's supposed to be high win rate or not. It's like, hey, if that works for your style, and that's great. I really want to try like crit GP. I think I remember the old like crit plank stuff with like Shiv IE and whatever. All that was pretty fun. So I have a lot of kind of fun memories of old GP pre-rework.
Well, Trinity Force has crit on it as well. So you can go Trinity Force, IE. Those items are both extremely expensive, but yeah, it's strong. I definitely got my ass whooped by that a few times in some of our playtests. Yeah, he does a lot of damage. But I really vibe with the, you know, balancing based on vibes more than statistics. Like obviously Riot has the stats and like they're not going to ignore it, but a lot of times perception does get influenced super heavily by it. You know, like you go on whatever website for a matchup, you see, ooh, Ignite is 1% higher win rate than TP, so I should never, ever run TP and only Ignite. I'm like, well, there's probably some context missing because the win rate is like, it just every single situation averaged out or whatever. It loses a lot of the nuance and does kind of like mind control people a little bit to just do what the win rate suggests. And then, you might not even learn as much doing that.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like a lot of other games I've played too, where people will just try and copy who the best player is, even if there's not like a stats website. And people are like, wow, Azael is a world champion warlock. I'm going to copy what he does. And then you're like, you fill out all the stuff that he has on his character or something. But because you don't know why he has some of the things, you're like not doing it for, you know, you're not even using the benefits of like whatever setup, you know, the best player has. And so like understanding why something is good also, you know, carries a long weight.
I have a funny story about that. So way back in the day in WoW, it's like Armory, like WoW Armory or whatever, like people would go and look up what you had, but it would show your gear and your talents and everything as like what you logged out as recently.
Okay, so you would swap to some troll stuff?
So I would. So because even like a lot of the tournament players I was competing against would just copy my stuff because I spent a lot of time theory crafting, testing out all the builds and all the gear sets and stuff. And I would swap to some trash. Yeah. And I played against people who were playing at the tournaments and like had these horrible gear sets that logged out and terrible talents and stuff, and they didn't know why I was doing it, but they were just playing it because they saw I was playing it.
That's funny.
That type of stuff.
Hilarious.
I feel like that type of stuff happens all the time. So it's always funny to see when it doesn't work out.
There's a lot of people in League, like I'll pick a champion and then you see them block something and you're like, I know you just went on like on Lolalytics and searched, like best win rate against this champion, and then they have no idea how to play the matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious how often this probably happens all the time. But in ranked, it's like some champion that's a flex pick gets locked in on one team, but people think it's going in one role. So somebody like looks up counter to this thing, they lock in the counter, and then the guy who's actually laning against that looks up the counter to that, and so they just have like two people playing what they think are counter picks, and they don't really know how to play it at all, and it's just it's goofy.
Yeah.
That's fun though.
Well, speaking of the live League of Legends, our balance team and our design team also, I really like, by the way, that a lot of our devs are so kind of open with the community. Phroxzon, we've had him on the dive several times. Very open and likes explaining a lot of the thought process behind a lot of the changes that they do make. And so for the upcoming patch, of course, Mage's bottom lane has been this huge discussion all throughout MSI, even leading up to MSI and afterwards. And now you have all these like pro players and content creators are like quoting Gumayushi, 3-time world champion 80 carry player, hates mages. And, he has this quote about like, I'll have to look up the quote because I don't want to misquote him.
He wanted to play auto attack based champions.
Yeah, but it basically is like, he was like, it's fine if there's a mage or two or whatever, but I want to play auto attack champions.
Yeah.
In the bottom lane. And so Phroxzon made this very long tweet. I definitely recommend you're going to have to go look at the entire thing because it's quite long, and goes into some of their ideology on this whole discussion.
Yep.
And I like that he's kind of walking the line between where he says, I recognize, your arguments for the players that are longtime 80 carries that want to showcase their skill on 80 carry champions in the bottom lane and like play matchups that they expect. Yep. But I also recognize, the people that are excited to learn other types of champions, like mages or different subclasses in the bottom lane and have it be something viable, but they don't want it to be overwhelming so that it's like the, must have choice or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, he's kind of doing a reasonable explanation, and then he lists out several of their upcoming goals and some things that they're going to be doing. And to me, I don't know about you guys, but looking at these, I was like, whoa, after this like long explanation of like, okay, we want to we recognize both sides, we want to be in the middle. These look like fairly strong changes to me. And we can go down several of them here and we can have a discussion on them. But one of the very early ones has been in how in pro play, a lot of time these mages are being paired with supports that are roaming very heavily and then using the comeback experience later on to slingshot backup in experience. They're changing the quest for supports. To me, this is very big because before you were only locked into bottom lane until level 3, and the penalty was 25% golden experience. Now they're bumping that all the way up to level 5 for support is a much longer time that you have to stay in lane, and they're increasing the threshold to 33% reduced golden experience for penalties for roaming. So that change alone, there are several other ones here, but I feel like that one is pretty big, and I do think we're gonna see a meaningful kind of shift in the meta with some of the things they've outlined.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because obviously people see something in pro and then they do it in solo queue, but it's like may not be for the same reasons. And I like how he was kind of breaking it up into, their thought on pro and then their thought on solo queue, because I thought he had a good point where he's talking about like in pro, people use mages to enable these roaming champions, right? It's like safe. You can hold the lane by yourself. In solo queue, largely how people actually dominate with the mage lanes is by poking people out and getting kills in 2v2 and stuff. And like they're even saying that the data should support that. And that definitely anecdotally supports what I have seen when I think about people playing mage bots. It's like my bot lane's just getting slammed 2v2 and poked out and whatever and complaining about that.
It's like Lux Zoe, and then they're like, I got hit with one binding, boom, you're dead, or these combinations.
Exactly, or like the Xerath bot and stuff like that, where you're just under your tower getting poked constantly, right? It's not playing in the same way, so I think it is good that they are keeping in mind that there's like two very different different reasons why they are working in pro versus in solo queue. And I think this addresses more of what we see in pro, where people are roaming so aggressively. Because a lot of times in solo queue, if people are roaming, they might not even be like doing it effectively, and it might be just like hurting their team more than anything anyway. But between that, and then there's also buffs to some of the underpowered ADC tools, in their words, Berserker Greaves as well as Fleet Footwork. They're going to buff the base magic resistance for ADCs, and then nerf the MR growth, and they're going to buff heal. Like all of those combined feel pretty significant, because it is mostly early game. I feel like that ADCs really do kind of struggle compared to the mages. They spike faster, and like on one item, most of these mages are really, really strong. Especially crit marksmen need at least a couple items to get going. So I feel like this could really help bridge the gap towards mid game, late game.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been there for some of the discussions they've had around mages bot and pro play and stuff, and obviously can't go into the details of all of it. But one interesting with League is even when I'm streaming and well, I mean, these are the changes that they landed on. But when I'm like streaming the game or, just reading Reddit or Twitter or whatever, people will always be really confident on, this is why mages are OP and this is how you fix it. But there could be 100 different opinions that all sort of self-validate themselves by saying like, look, but people are playing it, so obviously like this reason is right. And there's a lot of things you could do to kind of like accomplish the goal of getting mages out of bot lane. Like there's actually a lot of stuff you could do, but it always comes with because League is such an interconnected game, it's going to have collateral damage on other stuff, and you need to make sure in trying to get mages out of bot lane, are you like getting mages out of mid lane as well? Are you sending AD carries mid lane? Because that was a huge problem before, right? With like the 2024 season of Corki Tristana rushing tank boots in Ruby Crystal and just killing your mages. Like that was some really not cool gameplay. And so, yeah, it is interesting trying to figure out, like what are the levers that can be hit that will have like the least,
knock-on effects.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it too is, okay, if you nerf the best thing that people are playing right now, what happens next? Because like with the Enchanter nerfs before this, I don't think many people would think that from Enchanters being nerfed, now all of a sudden Camille's support with mages is going to come in. And it's like, maybe it wasn't directly related to the nerfs, but there's a lot of unpredictability, I think, with this stuff. And it is interesting, but I think the changes should be pretty good as far as what they're deciding on. Yeah. I'm happy Berserker Greaves get buffed, even though I don't really like playing AD, and I never really buy them on anybody, but those things are so weak. They're 25% attack speed for 800 gold after level 1 boots. It's like, ew.
I think the mid lane ones are really strong, but there's just not a lot of champions in pro play that actually build them anymore, right? Because it's like Yone's the only AD mid laner, and he builds defensively a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I also do like the idea that that's going to be their boots to build. If it's a world where they're so weak that you're getting all these defensive boots and stuff on AD carries all the time, then that doesn't feel good. I don't think that feels good for the people, even if you're not playing AD carries either, right? And it's kind of ideal for them. But yeah, I was also going to bring up the thing about you have to be careful if we're going to get more AD carry champions in solo lanes. It's so hard to solve all these problems because you're juggling. Well, we don't want the AD carries to get blasted by mages in the bottom lane, but if we make them so resilient versus mages with lots of MR and better early game scaling, then they will flood back into mid lane as well. And obviously, as Phroxzon, the reason he had such a long post is because he's making sure everyone's like, don't worry, I hear you. We're trying to take all these things into account. We're trying to balance all of these different things and protect against these scenarios. And we want there to be variety as well. They don't want to fully kill out mages as an option in bottom lane. They also kind of like that there is an option to utilize them.
It's always interesting because that caveat is always given, but I feel like that caveat is always given and then we never see that thing again. And so it's like, whether or not that's, the designer's fault or just like pro players like are going to just kind of default to like what is, the norm if something isn't like really OP. Like pro players almost always will stick to the meta unless there's something that they think is like super OP, right? Like, there's a reason why we see 10 billion games of like Gnar and Renekton, even if they're not as strong on the meta and so on and so forth. And so like I always wonder with that, because like I do think it is a noble goal to like get the rare Ziggs or whatever, but I feel like if these changes are effective enough, you usually just kill off all of that ever happening, right? Like, don't think there's a lot of examples in pro play of something like this that gets super popular, then gets kind of like a large patch, and then continues to like get 20% play or anything like that. Because even I'd be curious to look at like the actual data. This is something I wanted to get for LCS this weekend too, was like the actual win rate of non-standard bot carries versus ADCs in pro play. I was kind of really curious about like what the numbers actually looked like on that. And even like the percentage of games in which they are played, I think is also somewhat kind of like exaggerated. I definitely get people not enjoying playing against it. And I did really kind of like resonate with Gumayushi in his interview, because he talked specifically about the idea of like picking a role for its identity, right? And feeling like, oh, look, I want to be
a lane for the role.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, I want to be a bot lane player because like I like auto attack based champions, and that's like my thing, and this is what I'm going to play. And then it's like, oh, the meta's all mages. Well, that sucks. Like, that's not why I was playing this, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's a really interesting one, because this isn't the first time this has happened, right? There was the 2018 Mage fiasco where, Reckless benched himself. Sven was coming out and being like, stop this nonsense. It's like, we're going to play 80 carries. And it's definitely two really conflicting ideas, because on one hand, I think, I get why people like playing 80 carry. It does kind of like fill a certain role in the game that people really like. But at the same time, when you look at every other role, there's so much more variety in every other role. Top laners, it's like half the champions in the game go up there. Yeah, sure, it's typically bruisers and tanks and stuff, but you have ranged top laners. You have play top lane in solo queue and then tell me that there's a meta. You lock in, and the thing you think you're playing against gets flex jungle, and the next thing you think you're playing against gets flex support, and then you're against like Teemo or just some crazy top lane thing, and they have ignite exhaust, and you're getting camped. It's like, wow, but you don't often hear people be like, the sanctity of top lane. Like, I want only Renekton versus Gnar. And jungle is similar, right? There are some evergreens. I think Lee Sin has always been like pretty playable in jungle, but we've had tons of metas where it's like, now you're playing all assassins, now you're playing Zyra Brand, now you're playing tanks. And so there's a lot of variety there. Mid lane, assassins, mages, etc. But bot lane specifically, a lot of people just want to play 80 carries there. And there's also the fewest 80 carries of like all the champs in the game. Because if you look at, go on like LAW Analytics, search every game played and sort by pick rate, and the highest pick rates for champions are always 80 carries, just because there's not that many different ones and people only play them bot for the most part. So it is a really interesting thing when it comes to the design aspect of things, because it's like, do you care about bot lane having more options to play? Or like, do we want them to have like the narrowest selection of things to play, but also trying to serve the players that really just want to play 80 carries and stuff? So yeah, there's a lot of conflicting things going on, and it's like hard to make everybody happy all the time. Yeah,
it is interesting that most other roles in League of Legends, you would think about them as like, you have to multi-class. Whereas Guma was like, I just want to play this lane because I want to play one class. I want to play like the Legolas, but it's definitely an interesting, always like continual debate, and it's not something that's going to be solved. But I do like that we always have this level of communication. Mm-hmm. I'm glad they're, keeping it up.
I'm curious. So I just quickly counted from MSI, so this could be slightly wrong, but total games played of mages bot lane 32 versus traditional marksman 110. So to me,
but you don't know. Well, okay, yeah, go. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, to me, I look, at least for my own viewing experience, I actually like the way the meta is now. I feel like it's over exaggerated how much we are getting mages bot. I'm not saying it's not frustrating in solo queue or anything like that, but just purely from my own enjoyment of spectating the game, I actually am really liking the meta right now, because I don't like, as much as there are quite a few mages, it doesn't feel like an every game thing to me. 32 versus 110 to me, that's like, that feels like an appropriate kind of like splash in of those characters.
So part of the beginning of the tweet also too, Phroxzon's talking about how those numbers are increasing from MSI.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing in Kespa Cup and EWC, it's already like, going up as well.
Yeah, I think the solo queue also, I think there was data from like Korean solo queue right now. Xerath is the most picked bot laner, and with a really good win rate too. And that is not a fun champ to play against. So it's definitely, I think it's the case of, you have to look into why are certain things getting played. And for Mage's bot lane, is it the fact that you cannot pick 80 carries against them? Do you just have too much trouble laning? Or, why are these things going on? I don't have the answer to that. It would take, I think, a lot of like looking into it to really have a good theory on it. But yeah, when it starts rippling so much and the rate starts increasing, especially with, summer splits not forever. There's a certain amount of time before Worlds, and by the time you get to Worlds, you want to have like a pretty stable patch. You don't want to let bot lane ride forever, and then all of a sudden you're like, what, mages are kind of OP. Like right before Worlds, boom, meta shift, and that never really ends well. And
at the end of the day, their job is to make as many people happy as possible, because this is a for-profit game. So they're gonna try and do it so that the most possible people will play League of Legends, and if there is this, like the majority of bot lane, players are like, well, we only want to play this class, then that will probably be the direction they go. Because if they make a bunch of changes and play base drops, then people will pull out the emergency stops and be like, whoa, we gotta make some switches. So we'll take a look though, because this is all future stuff as well. He's talking about their philosophies on this subject and what they're looking at doing. And let's get into the actual patch that is coming up that we're going to be playing on for this weekend of the LCS. And it is not huge, and we're not getting a lot of these giant changes that we're talking about, or of any of these like systemic things. There's more small things going on in here. And one of them is a Volibear buff, which everyone keeps coming up to me and like, oh, are you super excited? And I'm like, nah, really, because it's not really that big for jungle Volibear. It's not even like that big for top lane Volibear, but it's still better for top lane. I'm not going back to my one tricking status for Volibear. Not yet. Not quite for this one. Honestly, I was more gonna lean towards Zach, because I thought Zach was already pretty good, and he's getting like, these aren't very big buffs for Zach either, like 1 second off E and some armor growth, but I thought he was already pretty good, and I always enjoyed me a little bit of Zach play, so I thought he might be a good option for tank jungle
and tank top, like we were talking about before. Like it's actually a good flex across a couple different roles. And I feel like, especially in the fearless world, I'm always a proponent of like play tier strengths, and I feel like sometimes we have tank players who are like really really good at tanks, but they only play like Sion and Ornn. I'm like, man, there's more tanks than that are actually pretty good in the game. Like you can play Shen, you can play Zach, you can play Singe in some matchups, you can play some of these different style champions that like fit your play style and your skill set. And I feel like sometimes they are kind of ignored. So it'd be cool if we saw Zach. Plus, I just think Zach is a fun tank champion to watch. Like the way in which he engages is pretty unique compared to other champions, because it is long range, but it is long range with your body, right? Like you have to throw yourself in there. It's not like throwing out an Ornn ult or an Ashe arrow or something.
And there is actual counterplay to it. Your designers are always, we want to make something so creative and then also have creative answers and counterplay on the other side. And a lot of the times that's really hard to do, and it doesn't actually turn out that way. But Zach actually has counterplay. Like people can block you, people can knock you out of the air.
Poppy.
Yeah, Poppy.
Body slam you,
or like Gragas is a really big one. That's something that I'm always looking at with, what types of teams you have versus. And so then that forces the Zach player to do things differently too, and think about how they're going to slingshot. And so I think it's actually a really well designed tank, because there are some things that the enemy team can change and that you can change as well. But Meteos, I know you were talking a lot about this Belvev change, and since the Belvev changes were an entire novel long, how about you give us some first hands-on experience?
Yeah, so those did come out. I spent a lot of my recent time doing testing for Belvev, and there was definitely, I think, a lot of question marks as far as, you know, the degree of what she's going to look like, because, I mean, the whole goal was make her a lot weaker early game. Like, she's really bad early, but she's insane late game. She's supposed to be more kale shaped while being jungler, and it was kind of tough to do some of the testing because the current way Belvev plays is she just shows up at your Raptors level 1 and then tries to kill you. And
you mean her Raptors,
right?
Which are all her Raptors.
Both Raptors are her Raptors. And so she was she still is very snowbally with the new version, but before she would just start snowballing really, really early. And she also would fall off extremely hard before, because the biggest thing to note in the patch notes is that she had this modifier before where her auto attacks and on hits only did 75% damage, which it might not sound like that much, but that is a huge thing. Especially removing the modifier just makes her do like 33% more damage with auto attacks and on hits, which is crazy. A really, really high amount.
Especially for late game.
Yeah, a really high amount to increase a champion's damage by. So yeah, she's way stronger later. Stuff like Kraken and Bork, really good on her. And it's just, you know, can you get there? Because she does sort of need to be ahead to function. She needs to get her ult, which involves killing people. She has to get stacks. Once you get to 80 stacks, your ult lasts until you die. It doesn't have duration anymore. But, you know, she doesn't have her 3-minute ults from Grub anymore or Herald. So she's definitely a lot more late game skewed. And if you try to play her like the old Belvev, you're going to have a bad time. I think I was looking at her day 1 data, which it's always fun to look at. It's never very accurate, but it was like her win rate at 15 minutes was like 28%, which is pretty bad.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it's, you know, people trying her out and maybe thinking it's the old Belvev and being like, wait a minute, I can't play like that. But I do think she's pretty strong, and we're going to keep seeing how it develops, and you know, see how that goes.
It is one of the most extreme changes, because she was Giga OP early, and now you're going all the way to Giga OP late. It's like you're saying, it's completely different. So there's going to be a lot of shock, I feel like, from people changing. Yeah,
and it was also a champion who had a really big skew of win rate on different like elos, because in Challenger she was it's not technically Challenger, but like it's considered elite. I don't know the exact cutoff for it, but it's the highest bracket. She had a 55% win rate in elite gameplay, but in average she was like 50%. So that kind of skew is like, you have to think, is it the champion's hard to play? Is it that she just has really good early game tools that higher elo players know how to take advantage of and stuff? So
I'd assume it's that. I feel like counter jungling is a pretty advanced thing.
Challenger games are also, like, the higher you go, the shorter games you usually go to.
Yeah. So there was all that stuff which was pretty fun to work on it. And I'm just hoping that it comes out in a fun way. And I actually played a few games of her today, and she was feeling pretty strong late game.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
I'm always kind of two minds of this stuff, because I love scaling champions. I love playing that style. Like, I love Kale. I remember talking, I think, with August quite a long time ago about him doing when it was like the new version of Kale, right? And the whole idea of this like thematic of a champion becoming just like absurdly powerful late game, right? And that was kind of like the original premise, but it couldn't really get to like the levels that I think, you know, like I understood the designers were kind of interested in getting to, because the problem becomes, if you have a champion that is like that strong late, to justify it, it has to be so trash early that like the game is almost nothing to do with you, and it's like feels horrible for your teammates because you can't contribute in any meaningful way. And then if you do get ahead, it's more because of like your team helping you, or the other team like trolling super hard or whatever, you know, like it's kind of like a bad feeling in both ways. Like for the other team, if you get ahead, it feels like, oh, like my teammate fed this guy and we just lose. And for your team, it feels like, oh God, we have a Kale, we can't do anything. Like, and so I always feel like it's a little bit weird when it indexes too heavily into that style. Like, even as someone who really loves scaling, because it's like you're taking a champion that you're saying has absurd late game scaling, but like in your words, also has to scale, like has to snowball early. Yep. So it's like, how are you supposed to snowball early as a complete trash early game champion? And it feels like that can be frustrating to play with because it's like if my Belvis is going for these invades and feels like they have to do this to like get stacks and get kills and get ahead to a point where they can scale, well, there's a high chance that they're just going to lose those fights, right? And it's like, I love Kindred. It's my most played jungler, but you know, there's certain matchups where it's like, you just can't win the 1v1 almost no matter what you do, it feels like at times. And you're still just like going to try to like get these marks. It feels like you're just baiting yourself into going to marks and losing the fight and dying, you know? It almost feels like Bel'Veth is kind of going that same way. So I guess I always feel like it's a little bit weird if it's a scaling champion that needs to fight and needs to snowball, but you're weaker than the people you're supposed to be fighting and snowballing against.
Yeah, I think it's a super valid concern. And that was something that we talked about. But I mean, that's just, there's just a lot of different players who like different things in the game. And I think my personal taste is sort of more in line with you. I like things that aren't as feast or famine. I like it when it feels like my decisions are what matters the most in the game, when it's like, you know, I'm never going to be that ahead or that behind so much that there's no more gameplay involved. Like, that's what's fun to me. But, you know, Riot isn't making champions for me, right? It's for everybody who plays the game, and there are like lots of people who really like these hyper snowball-y stuff. So yeah, I think that's sort of the audience for Bel'Veth is just people who want this scaling fantasy and like this really, really strong late game carry. And like the trade-off is, yeah, you just have to be super weak early.
Yeah, I think a lot of the other changes as well in this patch are a lot looking at solo queue. I guess Locke is both, because Locke is OP in solo queue and in pro play. But Locke got hit with the bigger nerfs, and then the Nefiri, Riven, and Sylas as well. One of my predictions for MSI, I thought Sylas was gonna take over and be super OP, and he was there, but he did not take over and wasn't super OP.
They made it look pretty OP against G2.
And I did like that. I did like
Took
that.
over that game, and he looked OP.
Yeah,
2 for 2.
I've been playing him in the jungle a lot, and I even had started doing this strat where I would actually max Q to really take advantage of the Q buffs and have super fast clear speed. And actually, it was really useful to find ways to take advantage of the slow with Q2 to do a lot of like setup and then like more. I don't know. I felt like I had more options, but they're literally undoing the whole Q buff that they did in the last patch. It's really just 1-for-1 reverting the exact change. And so you still have like your W change that they did with the extra AP ratio, but that's it. So they're basically undoing the whole Q thing. So I think even if you were playing around with like different skill orders or anything for the champ, you're going to go back to exactly as normal on Sylas. And honestly, like I said, I did think that he was overpowered, and so I do think it's deserved, but it's always funny when they just kind of like undo the exact thing that they just did.
It is funny. The lock changes are actually really big. Like I was kind of wondering what they were doing, because in general, I feel like there's a lot more of just kind of nudges in a lot of the patches these days. But these lock changes are really big. 35 off your base health, 10 flat damage off of the base damage of the nails, 30 off of the triple nail damage. Soul Ignition is getting a pretty big nerf as well. The move speed no longer scales per rank, like flat, because it used to go from 40 up to 60. Now it's just like 40 flat plus the same 2% plus 100% ability power. The actual gray health heal, the base value of that got nerfed pretty significantly as that scales up as well. So,
thank God. I thought his gray health was one of the most like BS things about this champ. It was described to me that he's supposed to burn himself, Soul Ignition. He's like,
he does.
I'm like, there's a risk to me activating this, but then
technically,
I never see him really hurting from it. Like, what? He's like on fire, kind of, but he just gains all his life back anyway, and you can stun him, and it doesn't matter. He can still reactivate it.
Yeah, he was for sure OP.
The reactivation during the W was the thing that, like, immediately when I saw he could do that, I'm like, come on. That's just like, to me, the counter to assassins is you CC them and you kill them. Like, that's the whole thing. That's what you do. So it kind of felt like it was cheating that paradigm in the way that Mel W was cheating the long range poke champion. How do you kill him? You jump on him. Well, Mel didn't let you, and it felt like Locke didn't really let you do that in some ways. Not that CC doesn't do anything against him, but it's like it's so annoying when you CC this character and then he just gets like a fat W heal activation during it and still kills you. But yeah, Locke's damage I felt like was way out of control. This champion just felt like you're playing versus a lot of assassins. If they get ahead, yeah, you can get 100-0 to kind of what happens. But it just felt like Locke could be playing on even gold or even a little bit behind and hits his buttons and you just kind of flop.
And to me, I'm actually okay if he could do that to one person, but the reset part of it, the power of his resets to me is really what made it so annoying. Like if this guy resets in a team fight, I feel like we lose the fight. And so then everyone's panicking. And if like you're playing against the Locke, then you kind of get mad at your teammate that like dies and gives him a reset, but then like maybe there's probably not that much that guy could do about it. You know, you're getting 100% to 0. But yeah, I just feel like his so much power is in his resetting in team fights, and he's blinking everywhere and just
dodge the nails,
just killing everybody.
Just don't get hit.
Anyways, yeah, this champion, glad that they are nerfing him again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played him for the first time this last weekend. Like on the live game, I was doing some of the like ranked 5s, and I was pretty shocked at the damage I was doing. I was against Alessandra in level 1. I just ran up and threw my nails at him and auto-attacked him, and like 60% of his health was gone.
Yep.
And then, because like I was there for a lot of playtests with Locke, but I was usually playing against him, and I would be like, wow, like, am I just bad? Like, he's doing a lot of damage. And then I would compare it to, like, maybe Echo would be doing similar amounts and stuff. But after playing him in the rank 5s game, I was like, I see why I was losing to someone. So
the person that you were playing against before, you were like, dang, they're really good. And now you're like,
I'm like,
maybe it wasn't even that good.
Yeah. Maybe I should have played more of the Locke side in some of these.
That's funny. Yeah, it's definitely he's a very strong champion, but gonna get some rightful nerfs, so pretty happy about that. Also worth mentioning that the LCS Championship in Georgia, the tickets are on sale now. It is gonna be Saturday, October 3rd and Sunday, October 4th, and the link is in the description, so get your tickets for the third split finals. That'll be our World Championship qualifiers and everything before Worlds is in NA, so that's gonna be really hype. Find out what teams are gonna be representing us here in North America for Worlds this year. Don't miss out. Get your tickets now, and we'll see you there. And then we are going to go to a quick break, and then we'll be right back after these messages.
Dude, this lobby is kind of comfy. It feels different.
If this is different, I like different. I'm staying right here.
Are you guys serious? We're about to get into game.
Emily, let us enjoy it.
You guys need to lock in. Maybe this'll help.
Oh no, not already.
Welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia. It is time to talk LCS. We had our kickoff here for Summer Split. Week 1 started out LYON versus Fly. LYON with the substitute, Armao coming in. I think a lot of us thought because of that LYON was going to have this, MSI hangover. A lot of our teams do. They go international. They kind of start off rocky after, and they're missing their star player. And then they kind of smacked FlyQuest.
Yeah, it was really funny to me too, because in the morning before LCS, our producer is like, slacks everybody and it's like, all right, what's your predictions? Mm-hmm. And then I sent mine in, the same from the dive. And then he messaged back and it was like, oh, so just so you know, we're just going to do regular season only so that maybe it'll make them more interesting, because you have to take into account Armao subbing in for LYON. Mm-hmm. And I was like, keep it the same. Keep LYON at the top. And then they kept it the same, and they stayed at the top even with Armao in there. It was actually crazy, because this is the match where we were talking about on the dive too, when we were doing the one with Emily, and we were like, ooh, this one versus FlyQuest. FlyQuest, they've been practicing really hard. They were looking really good, improving a lot. Like, this is probably going to be LYON's most difficult match right at the beginning, like you're saying. NSI hangover, plus not having inspired. Plus, FlyQuest, maybe they're peaking again, or, they've been improving. They were practicing in Korea. They played in the Soup Invitational, and then they come out like this, and it looked like there were just like no more supervisors at the school anymore, and like literally every lane is limit testing, going for 1v1s. Berserker's bottom lane playing Cassiopeia for the first time, flashing under the tower, trying to go 1v1. Masu's like chasing him, get back here. Like people are dying, living with 5 HP, and roaming all over the place. Dokless like styling on them 2v1. Saint is continuing to play excellently like he was at MSI, and just popping off as well. And then Armao is there like, I'm picking up jungle camps. Don't worry, guys. Y'all get the objectives and stuff, because like the whole team is just going crazy and completely styling on them. It was insane.
Yeah, I thought that was a super fun series to watch. I like your metaphor of like the like parents not like dad's not home with like we can stay up late kind of deal, because they were going absolutely insane. At Berserker's first dive on Masu, he didn't even kill him. I think he got executed.
He got executed, and he flashed too.
Yeah, he flashed and just kept going. I was like, wow. When I first saw it, I was like, damn, like does he not play Cassio very often? Because like he ran out of mana. That's her thing early game. But then he solo killed Masu like 3 times afterwards somehow, and I was like, oh, my bad. I think he's played Cassio before. So, that was sweet to see. I mean, like everyone was just solo killing. They were playing so insanely aggressive, which, that's my kind of League of Legends. People complain about Mage's bot, but I'm like, I would rather watch this kind of game. For me, it's less about the exact type of champs that are being played and more about what is the pacing of the game like. Because I would rather watch games with, even if the champions being played are somewhat similar, as long as they're interesting. Nothing is more boring to me than just, it's like Enchanter versus Enchanter, tanks everywhere. Nothing's going to happen before 30 minutes, and nothing that happens before 30 minutes matters. And then it's just going to be like a late game team fight where an AD carry kills everybody, and it's like, whoa, pentakill, or like Azir gets the 30-minute scoop, and then people are like, Azir's so sick. And I'm
30-minute scoops are always exciting.
Sure, but what about the 30 minutes of no scooping beforehand and of nothing happening? I'm like the biggest Azir hater, because he gets this free pass because people forget about how boring he is, because he has like one hype thing he can do. So I would rather watch this kind of game 10 out of 10 times than something with just like really, really meta comms and just nothing happening. Not like, I always am just pushing for action. It's like, I want to see people getting kills and dying repeatedly. I want a bloodbath. I want a sloppy like fist fight, and this game was sweet.
I think that is so funny. What about the 30 minutes without scoops?
Yeah, dude, the 30. It's a good metaphor for life. You just got to do something real flashy that people remember, and then they'll forget everything else. The second game though, 48 kills in 32 minutes. The second game was just
incredible.
Like absolute bloodbath. Masu playing Silas versus Berserker Jace, and Berserker is just not someone that I ever pictured really being successful in the kind of like off meta stuff. I mean, when he had played before, he had only ever played a couple Ziggs games in his career before MSI, and they were all losses. He had 1 kill across like 3 or 4 Ziggs games in his career, and then I remember when he was playing Senna as well, and like everyone would just be memeing him, like how bad he was at Senna. I remember talking to Sven about this, and just how he was saying like he doesn't know how to get souls. He's just like walking around aimlessly, doesn't know any of the tricks, like anything off meta at all. He's just horrible at.
He literally flashed on accident when he was trying to queue a ward.
So it was just like wild to me to see him go to MSI, look really good on Ziggs in particular, but some of the off meta stuff, and then he comes back in the first series. We have Cassio, Jace as the 2 champions he plays, and he was solo killing Masu in both games. It was kind of wild, and just they looked good. Like Armao did fine, but like he didn't really have to do anything because all their lanes were just winning and just smacking everyone up. And I was really kind of blown away by how dominant they were. Their next couple matches are easier matches than this one, right? For the Inspired said he'd be away for 2 to 3 weeks. In the next couple weeks, they have SR, and then I think it's DSG. In week 2, week 3. So like FlyQuest is the scheduled hardest one, if we're going based off the previous seasons, and they already kind of smacked him. And so it definitely made me wonder, like LYON and TL both having really good series. I was like, damn, are these guys just going to be like so dominant now? Because they both look good at MSI. They both got that international experience. And maybe we will have some people come back and just be able to kind of carry that on.
Yeah, I do think it's worth mentioning that the second game wasn't as dominant. I actually was thinking that Fly was going to lose game 2 because
You mean LYON?
LYON was going to lose game 2 because, Dokla's on Volibear and he was having a really rough time. They just kept camping him. I think Fly was up almost 4,000 gold around like the 20-minute mark. But then Fly just found some really creative way to throw the game. It was like there was some top lane play going on, and then Griffin, it just feels like a desperate play. He was camping a bush by himself, hoping that maybe someone on LYON like splits off from the herd and wanders into him and dies, but instead he just jumped a group of people and he died. And I was sitting there like, that's a weird thing to do while you're winning, because they have no reason to, like, nothing good happens from what you're doing unless they make a really horrible decision. And there's a really good chance that you throw the game doing that. He could have just like farmed his camps, did normal things, went with his team. So it seemed to me like FlyQuest was off in this series for sure. I think they were maybe not comfortable with the meta stuff, and just their actual decisions in game were at times questionable.
Yeah, I think it's like the safety check. They didn't do their safety check before going for this play, because the play you're talking about, I remember all of LYON you can see them reset, and all 5 are like moving towards Baron to go get vision of Baron. And the guy they try and pick in the side lane is Saints Victor, who had just gotten his arm guard. And so you're trying to make a play on a champion that has a delaying item, and you don't have vision or anything of the rest of LYON, and they had someone split pushing bottom at the time as well. So FlyQuest are trying to make a play on top side while they have someone split pushing on bottom, which is not necessarily bad because, he has teleport or whatever, but that's still going to take a while to teleport all the way up there. And it was, FlyQuest from a winning position, then kind of like making this mistake where it's a really good response from LYON. But then LYON do what I thought was something that like reminded me of like when they do have Inspired there. It was much more controlled, They have everybody, they're setting up for the vision, they come over, they defend Saint, then they set up for the Baron, then they like turn off Baron, they get some more kills off of FlyQuest, and they eventually get the Baron out of it, and then they're able to push and like completely turn the game around. I think Berserker got a lot of the gold for these fights with the Jace getting a bunch of last hits, but I also thought this is another time where Saint has had a really good like Zhonya's activation when he's playing Victor. Remembering the other one where he was up around that like blue buff wall by Baron, and he was able to like come back and reset and bait people in, but I definitely agree that the second game was more like, oh, sweet, we're going to have like a cool series because FlyQuest are running freaking Silas Rel bottom lane into Jace, Shen, and FlyQuest are winning this one. So we're going to get more of this, and there's going to be a third game. And then after that play, you're like, oh, well, never mind. I guess LYON are going to 2-0 anyway. I
thought it was kind of cool because it was obviously a very chaotic series, but like Inspired and other LYON members have talked about it as well. Like the idea that they felt like sometimes when they go international, you play against the top LCK, LPL teams, whatever, and that it becomes so chaotic because they are making decisions so quickly that like they had to get better at being fast in their decisions and being able to, make the right decision in a chaotic game. And it's hard to do that if you're not practicing that way, like if you're not playing that kind of style. And so I thought it was kind of cool that they were coming and they were just like brawling and trying to, make correct decisions in those moments and just trying to like force the pace of the game. And obviously when you're playing a game really fast, really brawly, there's things that are going to go bad too. Like we had, in that second game, they have this lane swap where they sent Dokla had just like got ganked and died, I think, and then they sent him bot, and they had sent Berserker and Isles top, and they tried to go for this like 4-man play on top side, and FlyQuest had gotten there to respond and end up being able to like completely counter the play. Like they go for the dive on the Olaf. They do eventually kill the Olaf, but everyone else there dies, and they go 1 for 4, and everything kind of goes bad on that top side. And that was where, like you guys are talking about, like, oh, it was pretty close. I thought after that play, I was like, okay, like this one could definitely go to FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a funny play where it's not often you see your team is initiating the dive and then you end up getting wiped. Like everybody dies, just complete catastrophe play. So, I mean, it was fun seeing them play chaotic. I think maybe it's limit testing, maybe it's just something unlucky happened, but we'll see, because it is just week 1. It's the first match, and I think the only concern I would have is like I hope they don't just keep pushing it, because I think we've seen teams do that before where they're too dominant. I guess C9 in the past has sort of felt this way, where it'll be like they're winning too much in their regular season, and so they just start, pushing how much they can get away with, and then come playoffs, it's like they're still doing weird stuff. They start drafting weird stuff. So obviously not necessarily going to happen, but it is something to keep in mind when you see people kind of like going a little crazy like that for no reason.
Yeah.
I think Inspired will come back and crack the belt though. If they get too,
yeah, but I mean, I love it. I love it. That game was one of the favorite games I've seen in a long time for League.
Fun.
It was there was that one fight by Baron where it was just so close. Like Armao came out of his GA and did like a W flash to save Saint from Silas, like 1 HP. I was just like, I was actually jumping out of my chair watching that.
Yeah.
It was so fun. Like that is good League of Legends right there.
Yeah,
give me more of that.
I was gonna definitely give Armao props for game number 2, because game number 1, I agree, like he didn't have to do that much. Everybody's already winning, and then DeJarvin's like getting objectives. But game number 2, it was like he got it. It was like everyone's going crazy around him, and he was like in there with, especially that fight. Like he had really good, mechanics, like the team fighting and everything was on point. So excited to see if they can continue it. The next game that we had, or the next series that we had, was the Dignitas versus Sentinels. The 1-2 Dignitas. We got Palafox Summer. It was actually pretty funny because Kangas was like, all right, I'm going to make this big call. Here's going to be my take for this play. It's going to be the Summer of Palafox. And then he actually got Summer of Palafox, has some big plays for
game 1.
For a game.
Yeah, he was popping off in game 1. He actually was like that was honestly a really impressive game for him, because he had a good laning phase, but it felt like everything was going bad around him on the Orianna. But those are the most satisfying games to play, where like you have games where it's like you get fed, but then like everyone else is kind of getting fed too, and the other team just like FS, doesn't really matter. But it's like the best games to play.
It's just you.
Exactly. It's just you, and like you need every bit of that gold because you got all these people dragging you down, and you actually get the win. And it felt like, damn, like that's what was happening in that Orianna game, is that the map was all falling apart around him. He had a good laning phase. He had a lot of farm, and he was able to find like big shockwaves, good plays, and actually make the most of it. And he went this super tanky build as well that ended up, scaling and working out quite well for him. So no, I mean, it was a really impressive game, and those ones are just like so satisfying from a player point of view, when it's like you get to be that guy and your team needed you.
Yeah, that was super fun. I kind of liked the belief in Palafox coming from Kangas, because Palafox is a player that, even though I think the last year or two he hasn't really looked that great, he's had a lot of rough performances, but before that he was looking really good on Energy. He looked so good in the split they won, obviously going and beating G2. I still remember in playoffs and Worlds, he was just absolutely destroying APA
on
all
both
of
sides
these,
of the matchups.
Yeah, like these Ori versus Syndra matchups, he was just running him over entirely. So I think people do often have recency bias, and Palafox hasn't been great lately, but I'm always a big fan of people who can turn it around, and so I'm hoping he can do well. I feel like I'm kind of hoping XU can turn it around as well, but man, this first game was very, very rough from him. Even though they won it, like I had to double check because I was remembering what he did early game, but it was like he died like 4 times by level 7.
He was getting monster gapped.
To me, it was. I think Hambach played fine, but I think he was just doing extremely desperate plays off the rip for no reason. It was like, hey, you're a jungler. You clear your jungle camps, and then you look for something. But XU it felt like he thought they were already losing from the get-go. It's just, I think there were 2 back-to-back plays where he would just rush the objective without clearing any of his camps on that side, not have Prio get killed, and then lose that entire side of his jungle to Hambach right afterwards. And so that is game losing. You're just starving yourself for no reason. And so I was pretty surprised they didn't win off of that. I actually thought watching this that it was kind of interesting that I think that if somebody like Inspired was in Hambach's position, he would have been able to do more with the lead he had. But I think Hambach, just as a player, someone who wants to look for plays, he's kind of uncomfortable just taking a farm advantage. Because honestly, usually the way jungle works is if their jungler isn't clearing efficiently and just decides to force some random play and they die, they should get heavily punished by you taking their camps, then taking all your camps, and you'll start building XP leads. You'll get like 2-3 level lead just doing that. But I feel like Hambach, he would take their camps, but then not take his own camps. So he was playing kind of like, I'm not really sure. He was maybe worried about what XU was going to do, or like didn't want his teammates to have to play a little bit back or something while he gets this huge lead himself. So I thought that for Sentinels was a little bit unfortunate, because I think they should have been able to get a game-winning advantage from what XU was doing.
Yeah, I mean, and then they did in the next 2 games, and like the jungle gap continued, and Hambach then went for a bunch of kill. Like to your point, instead of like going and farming his camps, then it felt like he kept on looking to like re-pressure lanes and re-look for champion kills. And Hambach ended up 27, 5, and 24 for that series. He had by far the most kills, highest KDA, and the last 2 games.
Kiana game was hype.
Yeah,
His Kiana was insane.
Yeah.
That was so
He
good.
was just one-shotting people.
Yeah, and I don't even know, did he have any real mistakes that game? Because I think Kiana's one of those champions that, when you were watching MSI and you see Kanavi go 0-10 on Kiana, just whiffing the wall with his ulti. I saw multiple ulti through that, just hit nothing at all. Like not a champion or terrain. I'm like, hey, I look like that sometimes.
Exactly.
But at the same time, Kanavi's a really good Kiana, right? And I think it's just the nature of the champion. When you mess up on her, you just look really, really dumb. But I know Hambach was just insanely
crazy.
clean. He was he had such a good Kiana game. And I think that's absolutely more his style. He doesn't want to just get a lead through farming. He wants to just kill champions over and over and over. And so, obviously he's able to do that game.
I mean, the XU like whole conversation is interesting because I didn't think XU would be on Dignitas this split. And like, I don't think I'm alone in thinking that.
he did not think he was going to be. He said in this exit interview.
Well, that's what I was going to mention is this interview, and it's like everyone kind of thought it was going to be an XU interview. It didn't end up turning out that way, but it was the one with Cloud9 and he says, the quote to me was absolutely insane. To be a good team, you either need to respect each other or like each other, and we have neither of that on this team. To me, that was an insane quote. And obviously they did the whole, extended interview with Raz and Jonathan, their GM, and kind of walked it back a little bit. And, but I thought that was an interview being given by someone who was leaving the team, right? And so his performance had not been good. That obviously shows he was very unhappy. He was considering retirement. He talked about that in the interview as well. So I was really surprised that he was here and, given this performance. And the reality is he had a really bad series in week 1. So, it might be something that they're considering.
Yeah, that was the other part. I'm glad you mentioned that. He literally said himself, because of that environment, he had considered retiring while he was playing for Dignitas. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, if one of my teammates or one of my players is giving an interview like that, I'm like, okay, so who else are we getting then? Like, if he literally feels that strongly. Of course, Dignitas, this organization, they did try and make some changes. They, did change top lane. And they talked about like the, communication with top lane and being able to coordinate both like in game and out of game is definitely a thing. But it's also pretty hard to make changes to players within the year, like between splits. So maybe like that was a reason, but it was definitely a rough one here. I do like though, maybe the positive take of Dignitas, because this is the easiest organization to constantly rag on and has been for like many years of the LCS, is that they're clearly like trying to make whatever necessary changes or whatever changes they can to try and create something. Jonathan, the new GM, has given tons of interviews. He keeps on telling us like, please DM me or invite me on any shows. I'll talk about anything. Like he's really trying to change the environment within the team and like all the operations.
And it's hard if you have a small budget.
Yeah, it's very hard if you have a small budget, and it's very hard with what he was coming into on Dignitas. But he's bringing in tier 2 North American players, and it does seem like that's kind of what you have to do right now. And they're trying to figure something out, but it doesn't give you a lot of hope or like make you want to predict them to win against a lot of other teams.
No, definitely not. Denethor is kind of cool. Like, he's the player who was coming in, and in his Dignitas intro video, he said that he was going to be one of the best American players that NA had ever seen, right? Like that's what he's going for. I like that. And he also got interviewed by Sheep, I think. I can't remember if it was before or after his series, but like they asked him about it and he doubled down on it. They said, in your video for Dignitas, you said that you're going to be one of the best American players NA has ever seen. What kind of time frame do you envision for that statement? Is it this year kind of thing or more of a long term? And he said, could be either, but regardless, it'll happen. So he's obviously feeling very confident. I feel like he played fine in the first week. But I do also think realistically, it is very, very hard when you come into a league on a bad team. And to actually be able to like learn the right things and to be able to develop in the right way. Generally the players that we see come in and kind of have those really promising trajectories are the ones that get to come in and play with like Impact or Inspired or, players who have been around for a long time and know how to teach their teammates and know how to really get you moving in the right direction. And it's hard when you're on a team that just has a ton of different problems. And I feel like on those bottom teams, everyone is generally more focused on themselves and trying to figure out what they can do better. And sometimes because there are those struggles, it doesn't get as much into teaching your teammates and helping other people out.
Yeah, I think I didn't have a super strong opinion about his performance here, but like you said, and to his credit, it would be pretty hard to stand out given how the games went. I think he did okay, right? He made some mistakes, but he's a rookie. It's his debut. I don't think it was bad by any means. I think it was fine. Obviously room to grow, but I like the mentality of I will be the best player. He's not saying he's the best player right now, and he's not saying he's gonna do it this split, but he has that confidence that he can do it rather than saying that he's already doing it, like drifting into delusion. So I really like that. I think that's the right kind of confidence to have, is just belief in yourself that you'll get there even if it's not immediate.
I'm really glad also that we got to hear more from him from pros. He was on the podcast and he was talking about himself. Not only does he have this strong belief and drive, but also he was paying for himself to go to Korean boot camps. And for a tier 2 player, that is very meaningful.
Decade of salary.
Yeah, that is very meaningful to me. That not only does he have the drive, but he has the commitment and the work ethic to to put all this work in. I also thought the episode was really funny because Surdy's on the podcast also, and he was like, I gotta give you some advice. If you're coming in as a rookie player onto a bad team, you got to look out for yourself. You have to make sure that you look good. Don't let your teammates run over you with making you sacrifice too much for game plans and stuff. And Surdy was basically because he's been there on Dignitas, even literally. And so he was kind of looking out for him. And he was just hold strong and take care of yourself. You can make it, buddy. It kind of felt to me like some top laner camaraderie, new player type thing.
It was a message to his past self. This is what I needed to hear.
Do not TP bot to try to save bot lane, no matter what you do.
I thought,
TP back to lane and tell them you don't have it.
Yeah,
don't roam to the crab. Don't give up lane power. Your jungler's not going to carry.
I thought that was a cool interaction.
Funny. Yeah, it was a good episode for sure. TL versus C9, another series that happened, which was one of our big hype ones for opening week. TL 2-0 looked pretty dominant. They got our first lock of LCS for Quid, and I think C9 regretted giving that over, even though they clearly had a game plan for it. Quid even in the interview afterwards said that Colley's a really good matchup into Locke, and so clearly they were looking for that matchup.
And Quid said, I didn't even really want to pick it, but my coach made me pick
it. It's OP. And it looked OP. It took a while, but he got there. And this was also, I don't know if you knew this stat, Meteos, but this is the first time that C9 had lost a regular season series in, I think it was 430 something days.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that number on broadcast, and I remember thinking, I'm like, that's a really long time. That's,
over a year.
Yeah, that's over a year. So they didn't lose anything for this whole split, the last all summer, and some before that. So that was a really long time. But at the same time, it's one of those stats that if they haven't lost anything, that would mean a little bit more to me. But I see these guys lose all the time.
As soon as there's an international qualifier, they'll be losing.
Yeah, it was playoffs. I see them lose a lot.
Meteos is like, wait a second. Is that true? I see them lose all the time. What the?
You guys lose every day. What are they talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So, yeah,
The switch up from sponsored by C9 Meteos to Riot Meteos.
I don't know. I feel like it's just
The
fact.
switch up is crazy.
No, it is really funny because, but I mean, that has at least been their thing to hold on to, is that they do keep on winning
Losing in playoffs.
No, that they keep winning in the regular season.
Yeah.
And now they came back and they went up against Team Liquid, which I feel like this is, I completely agree, going to be one of our talking points moving forward, and we could even tell this when we were at MSI, but TL looked so much better at MSI. Like, you could tell the improvements in individual play and in team play and coordination. And the players and the coaching staff talked about how much, they learned and how much better they got. And so to give Cloud9 a little bit of like, you did at least come up against a very strong opponent. I think TL coming back from MSI, incredibly strong team, along with LYON. It went, especially when LYON reunite with Inspired and get him back. But yeah, C9 having to go. You say having to, or I say having to go against Team Liquid. Like, of course, Cloud9, are aiming to be number one.
Yeah.
And I do like that, they've talked about, and they've shown like these extreme measures they're even willing to go to get seven people on the roster, coaching staff change. Dom is like, yeah, we are not going to be satisfied with trying to scrape into Worlds and get the third spot. We want to be number one. So you went up against a really strong team. Now, I will say it wasn't like they looked, C9 looked like they couldn't do anything, like they're useless or anything. They're definitely making it very competitive at points. And I did see the thought process for a lot of these things. But going up against Team Liquid, they're in really good form right now. So I think this is very deserved victory and success here for TL in the series.
I mean, it's maybe it's a way too early prediction. Well, it is just a way too early prediction, but it's LYON and TL. Normally, when you come back from internationals, our teams just kind of suck because they're burned out, especially now with all these extra non-Riot events that are in the circuit too. I know LYON were flying to EWC at 4 a.m. the night that they got eliminated. Right? It's like that is what the schedule is like. They don't even sleep; they just go to the next event, and so it's like the schedules are so brutal. People are not going to be able to focus and put that same level of effort into event after event after event. So they kind of have to pick and choose where they're going to put their energy, right?
Genius. That's why they got eliminated immediately from EWC so they could come back.
Low key, it's probably good for them.
They need some sleep, man. They gotta sleep sometime.
Straight up. And so usually, though, when you come back from international, people are like, okay, we're a top team. Like, we're going to qualify for playoffs. Like, we'll just take it easy for the first couple of weeks. We're not going to practice hard, do a little bit less solo queue, whatever, to like recoup a bit, right? Because you got to take a time sometime. Otherwise, you're going straight into playoffs and then Worlds, and then, you got to do it. But when TL and LYON come back and look this good this week, I'm like, all right, the league is kind of on notice. Like, everyone else is going to have to play catch up. If these teams are going to be looking as good as they have, that's kind of 2 of the 3 spots already spoken for Worlds, right? And that is a scary prospect, I think, for the rest of the league. FlyQuest and C9 are 2 of the teams that are wanting to be in the mix to go to Worlds. They both just got blasted by teams that just got back. One team with a sub. I don't think C9 looked bad by any means. I thought Tactical and Locke looked fine. To me, the biggest gap by far I felt across both of these games was parts that didn't change from C9. I thought that TL, Core, and Jose were playing on a completely different level than what we saw from Blabber and Vulcan. I felt like it's not even just like how they are pressing their buttons; it is how they are moving around the map, how they are coordinating. The jungle support for this team, I thought played so well. Even in the second game where Jose, I think, died pretty early. They got that first blood, Blabber and Locke on Quid early. You're like, okay, like maybe the Rise is just going to start running the game. They're going to start moving around and making plays. No, it wasn't about that at all. It was Jose and Core in like every single bush in Cloud9's jungle. Every time someone from Cloud9 pops in, they're getting jumped on, they're getting killed, they're getting pushed out. And I just felt like they looked like they were playing the game so much faster than Blabber and Vulcan. Even when Blabber had that early gank that went right and Vulcan's playing Bard, it's like these are champions that can get active on the map, can move around. But Cora and Jose, I thought just looked like they were on a completely different level across both games. And I do think that is concerning for Cloud9 because those are two of your core members, your veterans, your big stars. And I thought they got gapped pretty badly in this series.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of interesting stuff that happened this series. One of the things that stuck out to me was Yon's Corki pick. I think that, people are talking about Mage's bot and it's really annoying and stuff. One thing that makes laning against Mages hard is the fact that they run TP, and because they'll just generally outrange you, like a lot of times in 80 versus 80 matchups, you run barrier because you're going to get into one of these all-ins where obviously you're going to want barrier. But Mages, they kind of avoid that because they can clear the wave really easily, and then they're just longer range than you, so they don't let you walk up to them and start hitting them. And so what Yon did is he started with Doran's the helmet, for more MR in lane, and then he ran TP as well because we've seen some Doran's helm in bot lane, but it'll be on things like Senna or Jhin with Fleet because obviously the weakness is you don't have sustain. But you figure, hey, I'm against a mage who's going to be running TP, so I'll just also run TP. And then my lack of sustain is not going to be as much of a problem because I'll just TP back. So
especially because it's Victor, it's not like you're getting one shot.
Yeah. And then, I have that extra MR to deal with their poke. And so I thought that was really smart by Yon. I think that's something that people could definitely try against Mage's bot. If depending on how much longer they're in the bot lane and how the changes affect them, but I really like that from him. I thought he also picked the Kai'Sa into Ezreal, which we haven't really seen Kai'Sa do that well lately, but that is one of those matchups where you can play her. And yeah, I thought TL just was playing really well. They had some smart picks, and I liked the pressure. I like how they were just camping every bush. It seemed like a very difficult game to play for C9 in most of these because there's just you don't have that many choices, and if you choose wrong, you're just getting one shot from a bush, and that's a good way to play. That's really difficult to play against.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the Yon stuff as far as him playing well too, because a lot of times when we're like, oh, TL, all of their really good players have been playing really well, and we've been looking at, Yon's not quite living up to previously what his own expectations. But him playing really well, he only died a single time the whole series. Also is definitely bodes well. I wanted to talk about Cloud9's 7-man roster though a little bit more deeply, because when I
didn't see 7. I saw 5 people.
And I listened to their podcast that they did afterwards too. And when I first heard about this, and I don't know, my feeling of it is it feels like a situation where they brought on these players that they kind of want to replace and have in these roles with Loki and Tactical, but they're letting the other two stay on for the you can play to get your spot back, more than it's we're 7-man, everybody's the same, it's 50-50. And they are splitting, they're splitting their time 50-50.
And subs, basically.
Yeah, but to me it feels like more of a ooh, we're bringing these guys on, you guys can fight for your spots back. More than we haven't really decided. It feels like this is kind of the new guys are kind of the default until proven otherwise, and maybe we get a proven otherwise scenario. Plus, if you do it that way from Cloud9 perspective and management perspective, then you're not giving the opportunity of your opponents to pick up what are some pretty strong pieces to allow the bottom half teams in the league would snap up APA and Sven very quickly. So if you do it this way with a 7-person roster and you give them the chance to fight for their spots back, then you also don't have to make some of your competition stronger by putting APA and Sven out there, which would I'm pretty sure they would find other teams among your competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually kind of like that explanation for the 7-man better than the normal one we hear, which is everyone is part of the team. There's no starters and subs, because I feel like the starter and sub makes a lot more sense to me. You have the people that you're planning on going with, but you also have other the former players who obviously have a lot of synergy with the team. Maybe if the new guys don't work out, you bring them back in. Obviously, kind of sucks for them getting moved to subs.
It might not even be true. That's just kind of a feeling.
Oh, okay, so it's just vibe based. I see.
This is my look on it. My take.
I see. Yeah. Well, I mean, if that is the case, I feel like that would probably at least make more sense to me than otherwise, because I think I was expecting to see APA and Sven come out game 2 after losing game 1. You know, if you're having a 7-man roster and then you're not using it, what's the point of having it? So yeah, you know, maybe they just decided we wanted to play this whole series with them. I liked seeing Loki though. I thought game 1 as a collie, he was actually playing the fights really well. Like just mechanically, I think he was creating space well, and it was a pretty cursed game, to be honest. They had like this full AP team in a sense. You know, you have Skarner and Ezreal, but they don't do enough damage to make the other team need to build armor. You know, you have this Renekton.
There was 4 Merc Treads, 2 Hex Drinkers, and a Maw at a 27-minute fight.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 Maws by the end of the game, and everybody had Merc Treads, right? Yeah. So it's like... And then I think also C9 was calling to dive Kai'Sa in the fights, which is what it looked like they were doing, which I don't think made any sense, because you're up against like the entirety of TL should have trouble getting into your team. They want to counter dive, like they want you to go on their AD carry, and then they all collapse on you. And C9 was just giving them that every fight. I'm not really sure why, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. It didn't feel like C9 as a whole was playing very great. Like the Blabber's first death again at the crab, like. Bless him for that.
When Core JJ comes back around, they have vision of Core JJ.
I mean, they knew
Blabber's
he was
waiting. He's waiting for his shield. Yeah,
his shield was up, but he pressed E for some reason, and you can't W while you're in your E.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things. It was such a head scratcher because.
Yeah, I thought he was baiting in that spot, but then he just didn't press W, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, we see that happen to Blabber more than most. I do think Tactical probably should have been there, because like it is kind of troll to not have Blabber get the crab there. But it's the thing where Blabber has to make sure Tactical is actually there to preventing Nautilus from just one-shotting him.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't, and Blabber went for it anyway and gets punished really badly and, you know, looked pretty silly doing it. But yeah, it's just one of those things that we see too often from Cloud9, and they just looked like they weren't really there as far as the chemistry and the decision making in game.
I agree that Loki was playing well, you know, mechanically in the Akali game. There was one fight though, which like to me is where the game kind of got blown apart. And it was that 27.5-minute fight where he did make a little bit of a mistake, and maybe it's like a team call to dive LYON like you're talking about. But there was this fight that TL actually engaged around mid lane where like Jose like flashes in, gets a 3-man knock up, you know, Core is going in, and Loki basically just tries to dive in onto LYON and take him down. Blabber goes in as well. Like they both like full sended on him and flashed on his head. And Loki tries to flash after LYON, who had like repositioned with Killer Instinct, then flash back to the tower, and he cancels his passive auto and like doesn't get the kill, and they like he dies. It's a big shutdown to Locke. Locke gets a reset, and then even LYON lives with like 1 HP, and they try to like then the CC up Morgan and kill him, but Morgan doesn't die, and then all of a sudden Quid can just go in and use his resets, and he just like wipes their whole team. And this is like that terror of Locke, like you're talking about, Kobe, where it feels like, if one person messes up and gives him that reset, you feel like you lost the fight. And unfortunately for C9 in this one, it felt like it was Loki that, you know, made that little mistake where like he went a bit too far, couldn't kill the Kai'Sa, gives the reset and a shutdown to Locke, who was already giga fed, and then he just wipes them. And that to me felt like kind of the backbreaker, because C9 was on soul point, they were down gold at that point, but like then they lose the dragon, they lose the Baron, like Loki dies, Quid gets like giga fed and is basically full build off that too.
Yeah, it was a hard game to play. The Ezreal priority that we saw this first week in LCS was pretty surprising to me. I don't know about this champion. I think he's not bad, but I think he's kind of an AD mage in the comps where he's just really good. I think people, I don't know, I haven't talked to pro players, but I feel like they're probably overvaluing his level 1 with lethal tempo, right? It's like you stack up your passive, you get prio in any matchup, and nobody can auto attack trade with you because you're just attacking twice as fast as them. But then he doesn't scale very well. He doesn't scale like an AD carry, and he also just doesn't have like the CC and utility of a mage. So yeah, Tactical didn't really get a lot done this game on Ezreal, and I think that's pretty normal. I mean, unless you're just like one of those Korean Ezreal one tricks who's just way too freaky on it for their own good. I don't think he's that good of a champion.
It is wildly popular in pro right now though. Like globally for like this summer split 3, whatever you want to call it. 39 picks of Ezreal, then the second most played Ziggs and Victor both at 25. So like, it is globally really really popular. But I agree, is
he winning?
He has a pretty good win rate. I could check. But let's see. It is. Wait for summer split. Okay, it looks like it's showing different here. This is showing too many games, which I don't think is accurate. So I think it's showing me other games. But it's showing 49% win rate. But that's too many games because that's not actually only summer. So I don't know exactly what it is. It shows here that it's like an over 50, but I can't see exactly because it's just a little green bar, and it only shows 39 games. So I don't know why when I click on it, it's showing me 200.
Yeah, I mean, either way, right? I think that. I don't think Ezreal is horrible by any means. I just was a little bit surprised with his priority that I think on Saturday, I remember seeing him get banned quite often, and then he was also getting picked super early in draft. And that was just kind of surprising to me that he's getting prioritized that highly.
In top 4 regions on 16-14, he has 70% win rate.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong, but he didn't look that good to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Ezreal is always one of those champions that it's very hit or miss. I feel like if you are really good on it, then like late game you can, I think, be pretty frightening, because I always feel like once they have like Endless Hunger and Shojin and Triforce and like they hit these like 4-item spike where they just have 0 cooldown, right? And if you hit everything, then you are kind of insane, but it is pretty difficult, I think, to actually like play the game in that way, to team fight in that way. It's kind of, I've always seen Ezreal somewhat similar to Lucian, where I feel like you can be a beast in late game, but it's like you have to play the fights really, really well.
Yeah, I just like I thought this game was a pretty good example with just the fact that you have Wukong and Renekton, even Locke to some extent, who just did not feel the need to build any armor against a 4-item AD carry out. I'm like, either Tactical is not playing Ezreal properly, but I think the champion's he's very limited in the amount of damage he can actually output. He does have a good early game, and I think you have to leverage his early game to just be ahead and then just win through that, which it's possible. For sure. Like he is really, really strong in lane. But if you can't get some huge advantage in lane and you're just, Q farming and going even, I don't think it's that good.
Yeah, for sure.
The final series that we have to go over is the Shopify versus DSG series. And Shopify coming out looking like a whole new team. I actually really like, in our build-up in our intro, Shopify put out another one of their documentaries with a lot of behind-the-scenes footage, and we used one of the clips that had Fudge getting kind of heated in the reviews, and you can feel the passion, and they are like, this is not a team that wants to be a middle-of-the-pack team, from the rumors and from the accounts, like this is one of the teams that invested pretty heavily, and of course, bringing over, Korean imports and really trying to go for a bigger impact, and then not getting quite as much as they wanted out of it. To see them come out and start strong here, it's versus DSG, but it definitely was a different look. Like Fudge looked really, really good.
Yeah.
He had a super good game. He had a super good both games, actually. And the team looked a lot more coordinated. It was nice also hearing from Azael. Azael, like adding him to the team. I know he said he didn't have plans to return to tier 1. He was like streaming and chilling. And the Shopify, they really had to like convince him, hey, we need you. We really need you to come back. Like it's difficult for us to find someone right now to fill in, but he's been great in interviews and in the game.
His comms in games.
Yeah, helping with shot calling. And he talked about his comms as well. He's like, yeah, I mean, these players that are on the team, they have good ideas and plans for stuff, what to do. But sometimes I just got to get the conversation started to get people moving and thinking about what's going to be next. And I feel like this could be the next like level up for this Shopify team and next little bump that they get. It's definitely a very good start, of course, to the split for them.
Yeah, I felt like Fudge in particular really stood out, and I felt like split 1, split 2 for Fudge, he hadn't really looked that good. And last year, I felt like Fudge was playing really well individually. So I feel like that is such a big boon to them. Like if Fudge can be consistently playing at a really high level, last year, I felt like there was times where, he was one of the top laners in the league. And when he's playing at his best, I think he is capable of that, of going toe to toe with those top guys. And they need that because, I feel like Zinni had not been living up to kind of like the expectations of the levels of dominance that maybe some people thought he was going to achieve. And Fudge hadn't been playing as well. So kind of Shopify the last couple splits has just felt like, well, I sure hope B-Voy carries, right? And that's kind of like what their team has
Or
been.
contracts.
Yeah, or contracts. And contracts had some monster games too, for sure. Like I think it was that Olaf game.
The Olaf and
right?
Wukong game.
Yep. So he's had some big games. But you need more than that, right? Like you need threats across the map. You need multiple lanes to play to. You need people to individually capitalize when a team is putting too much pressure on one lane. And so if Fudge is playing really well, it opens up, for more opportunities for other people too. And B-Voy had a great series. So it is promising for them. It's like you said, it is against DSG, but it was a good start. And it's going to make it exciting for them to see like, okay, now if you can keep up that level, like how high can you go, right? Because I do think right now, there is like a lot of potential for teams to move up. It doesn't feel like we have a locked down top 3 that are guaranteed to go to Worlds or anything like that. Obviously, Sentinels is going to be thinking they're going to be in the mix. Maybe Shopify can put themselves in the mix. TL and LYON, I think, are the ones that are the big favorites. And then you have FlyQuest and you have C9. And then you have potentially Sentinels and Shopify trying to push themselves into that conversation, all for that, 3 slots at Worlds.
Yeah, I thought Contracts actually was the player that I was pretty impressed with in that first game, because when I was watching this live, I thought it looked, it was looking really, really bad for Shopify, because one thing that I wasn't totally behind was the way that they drafted game 1, which was DSG early picked the Ziggs, and then Shopify just like slammed the Camille Galio Vi combo, which to me, obviously, this is something we've seen a lot. It's not always those 3 together, but it's like Galio plus Vi.
Hard dive.
Yeah, and it's just this like completely unavoidable dive. And to me, that's a really good strategy when the enemy team locks in Aphelios or Jinx, a character that the game is going to be played around them, and they have to die or you're probably going to lose, and they're not that good at living. But when it's only Ziggs, he's a mage who builds Zonia, and a lot of times like Rocket Belt as well. You're not necessarily even guaranteed to have a good dive target. And in the beginning of the game, their first few combos were being used on Ambessa, and then Surdy was just sort of kiting them out. He would either live for a long time or not die at all. And so it was looking really bad for them. But then DSG just messed up one-time bottom where they just walked up too much. Then Contracts found this insane engagement. A Q flash onto 2 people. Yeah. And then DSG was just completely out of position and it fell apart for them. But I do think that, as far as the draft goes, it seemed really risky to me to lock in this kind of draft against when you only see Ziggs, who's already good against it.
And then they had Cassio Shen, which was also quite good against dive. Like Cassio gets pretty janky. You can build Zonias as well. Shen, obviously, with like Locke at Stand United, Spirit's Refuge. Like it can be difficult for sure.
Yeah, so that was one thing, but I did like how they kept together. Like you said, Fudge played really well this game. I think he was kind of like that like beacon of hope for them when it was looking really bad, because he just kept scaling. He got a lot of items. He was a huge threat in these fights because he was kind of the best scaling champion in the game. There wasn't really, really strong scaling AD carry or something like that. So yeah, he was able to get a lot of work done, and then game 2 was a lot more one-sided for them.
Yeah, I like the Contracts focus too, because he also, in the early stages when they were losing their team fights, he would still get the dragons. Yeah. So in addition to that really big flash play for the engage, getting the smites was critical for them. They definitely needed those, and they were able to get the dragon soul because of it. And that was they would oftentimes, in multiple of these dragons, would lose the fight. And in the scramble afterwards, he'd be able to go back to the dragon or smite 50-50, take it or steal it or something, and then be able to escape. And so the first game was like super action packed, and that was definitely a very fun one, with the largest gold lead for DSG being over 5,000 gold, and then Shopify make this comeback and are able to win despite of it, which is kind of reminiscent of a lot of these other like teams that like Contracts and Fudge have been on, where they're like some scrappy underdog wildcard team that you don't predict a lot of the time to win over the top 4 teams. But then if like you feel an upset, like they would beat Cloud9 in the playoffs all the time, or they would be able to upset a lot of the top teams. So I want to see if this Shopify team can become the next level of actually being the ones that belong in the top, and the ones that they don't have to have some like come from behind victories versus the very top teams, and they can truly like ascend to that next level. I think that's the next thing to be determined, because they do look good, and I think they for sure could be middle of the pack again. But they also with some of the changes and with bringing in Azael, now maybe they can get to the next level.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be exciting. I think this week 2 look ahead is gonna be like it's gonna be some opportunities to find out like can some of these teams actually punch up, right? We have a couple one-sided ones, at least on paper. C9 Dig, DSG Fly are expecting to be relatively one-sided, and then LYON, Shopify, and TL Sentinels I think are interesting because it is some of these teams that are kind of, to me, trying to get in the conversation for being Worlds qualifiers. And for Shopify, coming off of a pretty good showing in the first week and playing against the LYON, who still does not have Inspired, this is your best shot to beat LYON in the regular season. Take a team, from the top of the table down. And so I think it's a cool opportunity to see how they're going to be able to perform against the LYON, even though it is a LYON.
Is anyone going to predict Shopify over LYON though?
No, not after week 1. I might have before week 1. I put them 3rd in the power rankings for regular season because I was like, I think they'll lose some games. But I think they look too good in week 1. But I still think it's cool to see if they'll actually be able to do it. Maybe they'll be able to prove us wrong, even if I'm not willing to kind of like place my bet on it.
They're still underdogs, but they're not as big of underdogs.
Yeah. They're like a medium dog.
Yeah, medium size.
A medium
dog.
Versus large, not like a little Chihuahua versus a giant dog, like a giant Rottweiler.
Is this term underdog about size? I've never really broken down the term and tried to figure out
where does that come from? What are you under?
You're smaller dogs. You're under the other dogs.
Is there an overdog?
That's the favorite. You're the overdog.
Underdog, there's for sure an overdog.
Overdog.
I see. Yeah.
Let's not delve too deep.
Much to think about.
I don't like where this is going.
Anyways, the other one that you said was going to be close is TL versus Sentinels.
Yep.
Are you going to predict Sentinels?
Why are you putting this on me?
All right, are you going to predict Sentinels, the underdog of this match?
I am not going to predict Sentinels. Nope.
Classic overdog predictor.
I mean, look, I've gone for some of the riskier predictions, and it hasn't been working out.
Okay.
It feels like
you've lost too many.
Yeah, I've been burned too many times. I don't know. I don't really see these bottom teams as being. To me, it feels like there's a pretty definitive pecking order right now, and there's some question marks for sure. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room, but I would expect LYON and TL will beat anyone that's not those two teams, with maybe C9 being able to swing up. I think that like DSG and Dig losing to everybody except each other because one of them has to win. And then
they are the underdogs of the league.
They are, yeah.
And then I would say like Fly, Shopify, and Sentinels is kind of like could go either way.
Yeah,
like they
the medium dogs.
But you put C9 above those.
I put C9 above them.
Before the regular season or for Worlds?
He's got 4 sizes of dogs.
4 sizes of dogs.
You've got the TL LYON size of dog.
Yep.
The Cloud9 size of dog. They're the only one that size. Cloud9.
I think they're
like a big dog, but they're like a golden. Not that aggressive.
I think they're slightly ahead of the medium.
They're
dogs.
goofy.
I think they're still a bit behind the top
So they're a
dogs.
different size. So there's 4 sizes, and then you got all the medium dogs.
I mean, they're like medium plus.
Yeah.
Medium
they're
plus.
the top of the mediums.
Yeah.
Maybe they could be medium as well. But
and then you got the tiny dogs digging.
Got some puppies.
yeah, they're puppies. They're doing their thing.
I like it.
Cool.
Yeah, so I don't know if I would bet against that order.
Yeah.
And for my predictions.
I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like I would if we're looking really far down. I don't know. C9 I feel like it has got, as much as they're like, nah, we don't care. It's just playoffs. No big deal. We're not nervous. Well, you've lost 8 international qualifiers in a row. That is insane. I just find it so hard to believe that it's not in their heads at this point. So to me, I think
not, we're gonna put it in their heads.
Well, we've already been talking about it. It's in their heads. I think so.
it's undeniable at this point because it's one thing if you just lose but you play well, right? It's like T1 versus Gen G. They lost to Gen G a lot, but they didn't look bad when they played them. It's just like they're playing a better team, right? But C9 in regular season versus how they play in playoffs, it's not the same team.
C9 went 0-6 in to finish playoffs.
Even just watching the actual gameplay of any individual game, they just look so out of it, lost, like uncoordinated, doing random things that make no sense. It's 100% getting to them. And when they say it's not, that's really weird. So
that's why I wouldn't have them as like a higher tier than like a FlyQuest and stuff. I actually believe more in a FlyQuest or even like a Sentinels, it feels like as like a long shot to go to Worlds than I do Cloud9 right now. Until they show me that it's going to be different, I feel like I just can't believe in them anymore. I mean, so to end last split, they were up 2-1 against FlyQuest, and then they won that series, right? I guess they lost 2 in a row, then they won 1, but then they lost 6 games in a row against LYON and TL, and then they started 0-2. So they're on an 8-game losing streak, obviously with a different roster. You know, they did make some changes, but I feel like they're definitely in a rough spot right now because of that. So for me, like, this is obviously way too early predictions, but yeah, I would not put them in a separate tier than like the FlyQuests and stuff. I think you could put them in the same tier with FlyQuest and maybe have them like slightly above the
I think that's fair.
Shopify and stuff, because they have shown that they are better teams. Sentinels and Shopify, I think it's like more possibilities, right?
Cloud9 have 7 possibilities on their roster though.
They got some possibilities, yeah. That's true.
Technically more possibilities.
Are you putting them in a dog tier of their own? Are they in the Worlds tier?
Sure, yeah. I like this medium plus tier. I'm with Meteos on the medium plus.
You see you have them above FlyQuest.
The medium plus, yeah.
Yeah, so FlyQuest just medium.
They're in the medium.
I could believe I could put FlyQuest in C9's tier as well. I mean, both of them had to play against the top teams, so they were going to look worse. And obviously, week 1 predictions are kind of whatever, right? It's like a lot of times by the end of the split, it looks way different from the beginning.
It's a total meme, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, it is. I just think that they didn't look great, but I don't think C9 looked terrible. I think there was some things they did in against TL that were solid. Mm-hmm. I think they had chances in those games, but obviously they made mistakes as well, and I think I didn't really love their draft the first game, but I would rather see C9 struggle in the regular season and then sort of ramp up as instead of their normal thing of just like running through the regular season and then falling off. So I still believe in them. Obviously, good players, and I think Locke coming back is cool. I really liked him. I think he did he win like rookie of the split or like split MVP? He won some award before he had to go back to Korea. So I'd like to see him pick up where he left off. And I think they could be good, but right now they're not on that level.
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I have had people telling me that FlyQuest right now in scrims are small dogs.
Small dogs.
So that could be influencing a little bit, but scrims, that actually
Scrim bucks are fake news.
Scrims actually mean nothing. Don't even say.
Don't be convinced. FlyQuest is a medium plus dog.
But then people keep telling me anyway.
That brain worms, they're getting in.
It affects me anyway. Yeah. Even though I say I don't care about scrims.
You're like, I'm above the influence, but really you're not.
Then I get influenced.
No, influenced. Says man being influenced by scrim rumors once again. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for us here on The Dive, driven by Kia. Went off the rails a little bit at the end there, but it was a fun one. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. Also, leave a comment. And also, shout out to Emily for replacing me last week. Thanks, Emily. Appreciate that. LCS returns this Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific, C9, taking on Dig. Let's find out what size dog.